they can automate certain parts of their services. I mean, a lot of lawyering is repetitive and can be standardised. And I think the big question is how much of it can be standardised. So you've got, how much relies on human judgment and how much can actually be automated. Yeah. So it's, I think there are certainly lots of tasks that we're seeing that are already leaving the profession and are already being done by technologies. So I think that the simplicity of what Josh is doing is a big lesson for lawyers. You started off just on your own, and but you've achieved a lot. The impact has been very, very large, and I think that's a big lesson for law firms and corporate law departments.
So here's a question from Bill Lyerly, who says, these techniques require large amounts of data to work. Yeah. What happens when the data is sparse or non-existent? Josh, do you want to start on that?
Yes, that's a very difficult question. I think that the good thing about the law is that everyone has to deal with it. There's not a single person who hasn't had a parking ticket or some minor legal issue. And so because of that, there is actually a lot of data through Freedom of Information Act requests, for example, and then as users come in, you can get more. I think that making decisions without data is really a bad idea, and I've been lucky to avoid those areas for now.
Okay, Rena, can we talk about this area of data? I mean, law, particularly the common law, where we rely on case law and precedent, there's a huge amount of data around, and traditionally law firms use their junior lawyers, their associate lawyers, to do this huge amount of drudge work, was essentially reading and scrolling through enormous numbers of cases to try and find what they want. Talk a little bit about what technology, things like IBM's Watson, are doing in this area.
So there are some really interesting things happening, and I think the questions are very good about data. Obviously, you do need data. It's like building a house. You can't put the roof on without having the foundations, and the data is your foundations. The machine learning technologies, like IBM Watson, are the walls and the roof of the house. And so, but if you do have that kind of data, then you can do sort of tremendous things with it. And I think some of the interesting developments have been that the machine learning software can actually look at unstructured data. So natural language processing, for example, has dramatically sort of advanced. And because it used to be that the data would have to be very structured, not only did you have to have it, you would have to have it in very clear boxes so that you could analyze it. But now, you don't need that so much. And I think, there's some of the interesting things that we've seen in the report. There's a new tool from IBM Watson called Outside Counsel Insights. And basically that takes lawyers' bills and then it can show the anomalies in lawyers' bills. So if a major corporation has sort of billing guidelines, and the lawyers generally should actually be fulfilling these or be compliant with them, this tool can actually look at where they're not complying. And IBM Watson Legal have estimated that they can save up to 33% of lawyers' fees for a client just simply by checking bills and making sure the bills are accurate. So we're not even talking about the tasks; we're just talking about the bills. And when you look at what a machine learning tool can do, that's just like the tip of the iceberg, really.
So we're talking to Rena Semgupta of RSG Consulting about our Innovative Lawyers Awards, and Josh Browder, who has got a business basically of helping people to access the law. Josh, listening to what Rena has said about IBM Watson, about all the technologies being developed in law, are these useful for you? Do you find that you can use them?
Absolutely. So I use Watson for free. And I think the biggest misconception around AI is that you need a PhD in machine learning to start. I think as long as you can use Microsoft Excel, you can use IBM Watson. Think of Watson as like an AI concierge, where if you need something very specific done, you can send it to Watson and then it sends it back. The billing example, I think, is the perfect example of just how much waste there is in the legal profession. If you can just save 33% just about billing, why can't you save 100% by automating it all?
Okay, and please do send questions, comments to Rena and to Josh. I'll use them to ask them questions. Josh, I'd just like to come back to something you said a bit earlier about how you can see yourselves working on both sides. Now, let's put aside for a moment the conflict of interest possibly inherent in that. But are you saying that companies who have a large number of claims for something would be far happier if it was structured in a way which they could see and they could use more easily?
Yeah, I think big corporations and the government see me as an enemy. Interestingly, NPR asked Los Angeles, the head of parking ticket revenue there, what do you think of Do Not Pay? And he said, well, we lose a lot of money from revenue, but we actually love it because the appeals come in a standardized format. People write such gibberish on their parking ticket appeals that it actually saves us money in reviewing them because at least it's well written. And so I think that the same can be true for corporations. I just want to promote justice. I'm not trying to allow people to get money where they shouldn't be. I just want to make it a fairer system and ultimately a problem-free world.
What are the areas you think we can go into? Where can you take this technology?
My idea is that any consumer doesn't even have to know what the word lawyer means. I think that it's definitely true that lawyers will have to deal with complicated corporate transactions, but for a consumer, there's no reason why they have to pay money for a will or to sue someone or for immigration documents. So everything that a consumer would ever want, I'm trying to tackle.
Okay, I mean, one of the things, though, people live lives that are different. So somebody writing a will, isn't there a danger of them saying, well, there's a bit of technology I can use, that'll ask all the relevant questions. They might be missing out something pretty important which could have an impact on their families for years to come.
I agree, and it has to be done really carefully. However, I mean, in death penalty cases, for example, a lot of the appeals are actually to do with how incompetent the original lawyers are. And I think we will get to a stage where technology will perform better. And there will, of course, be mistakes, and we have to be careful about that. But technology doesn't have the same human flaws that lawyers do.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. Please do keep them coming. Rena, just to pick up on this, I mean, as Josh has said, there is going to be a need for some lawyers, probably at the higher end where more judgment is required. But law has depended on junior lawyers coming up through the ranks, doing this fairly routine, quite boring work until they attain that level of seniority and understanding. How is the profession going to be structured if we don't have these junior people coming through?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and that's a big question facing the profession, and there's lots of views on this. I mean, I think fundamentally that work that junior lawyers was doing was very boring. I remember talking to a very senior partner at a top US law firm once, said, you know, we get the brightest and the best graduates from Stanford, then we lock them in a basement for 3 years and make them do donkey work, you know. And these guys are graduating magna cum laude, you know, class president, and it's such a waste of talent and energy. And so actually taking out those repetitive tasks for junior lawyers, I think it's ultimately a good thing. You know, why do you have to train a lawyer to be a lawyer and put them through that drudgery? You know, so training will have to change, clearly. And maybe it will get more intelligent, smarter, more interesting, more demanding. You know, and that's something that law firms will have to seriously think about, and law schools. So it's a problem facing the profession. But I think it is worrying in this country, and I think, you know, it's something, you know, people do need to answer the challenge, because the number of graduates going into the law has dramatically dropped since 2010. So the number of talent.
My friends are generally very nice, I hope.
I mean, as Rena said, the number of people becoming interested in law, graduating from law schools, is dropping. Are you still seeing people saying, I want to become a lawyer? And what's motivating them?
I think what's motivating them is a sense of improving justice. I think that even if you want to become a lawyer, if you understand technology, now is the best time ever. Because I like technology, but I don't have the greatest understanding of the law. But if you understand both, you're like a double killer power. Going back to the previous point about junior people, I think this is the biggest irony in legal technology. Lots of lawyers say AI will never replace us. Meanwhile, they're replacing their own junior employees with AI like case searching and discovery. So lawyers love to embrace AI, but they don't embrace it for themselves.
Okay, I mean, you just said if you're a lawyer with technological understanding, really sort of, you know, the world is your oyster. Yeah. You're not suggesting you're going to law school, are you?
Absolutely not. I don't have time for that. But you could replace me if you're a good lawyer.
Could replace you. How would you do that?
Well, I mean, so many lawyers are starting these innovative legal tech companies in both the corporate and consumer side, like Elevate, and it's just a really exciting time to be a lawyer who understands technology. I'm jealous. I wish I went to law school, but I don't have time.
You don't have time. What do you plan to do? With all this time that you say you don't have, what do you plan to do with it?
So I'm planning on make it within the next year. I make all these promises about an immigration chatbot, a divorce chatbot, and they're all coming in the next few months, and that's what I'm working on.
Great.
Yeah.
Josh Browder, Reena Sen-Gupta, thank you very much. Thank you for your questions from Facebook Live in New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.